I'm Mickey McKay, and welcome to today's lesson on diabulimia. As healthcare professionals, I know many of you see patients with diabetes, but you may be unfamiliar with diabulimia. So to start, I've given all of you a survey with some statements that I'd like you to assess on a 1 to 5 scale with how strongly you agree or disagree with them. So we have strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. And these statements are, I am very knowledgeable about diabetes. I am very knowledgeable about eating disorders. I am very knowledgeable about diabulimia. I am very knowledgeable about the differences between diabulimia, other eating disorders, and diabetes noncompliance. So if you all just want to take a couple of minutes to fill these out, then we'll get on with our lesson. So obviously let's start with, what is diabulimia? Diabulimia is an eating disorder that is specific to type 1 diabetics. It involves the purposeful omission of insulin in order to lose weight. Its official designation is eating disorder diabetes mellitus type 1, or ED-DMT1. It falls under other specified feeding or eating disorder in the DSM-5. So the way diabulimia works is insulin's role in our body is to break down glucose for energy. When we don't have insulin, we can't break down that energy, and so our body isn't getting energy, which then it starts to essentially eat itself. And so our body starts to waste away, and essentially sugars and calories flow out of us in our urine. And that's what causes this extreme weight loss. This is commonly seen in patients first diagnosed with diabetes. When they're first diagnosed and administered to the hospital, their common symptoms are being very underweight, being constantly hungry, constantly thirsty, and having to urinate all of the time. So these constant symptoms for patients, they come into the hospital being normally severely underweight. Type 1 diabetes is normally diagnosed in adolescence, and they come being underweight. They come into the hospital, they start feeling a lot better, but they feel bad about having diabetes. Obviously, in young, impressionable minds, having a serious illness like this can make them feel very different from their peers, which can be very hard in adolescence. And then they start feeling better and they start gaining a lot of weight because their body is no longer eating itself and breaking itself down for energy. And this also can cause the onset of diabulimia because now, after gaining so much weight and feeling so different from their peers, they don't feel good about their bodies, and they realize that the purposeful omission of insulin can lead to drastic weight loss. And they think it's okay, and they don't necessarily understand the complications and risks of this. So, aside from diabulimia, there's also other eating disorders and diabetes noncompliance. So on the next slide are the symptoms for 3 different diabetic patients. One has diabulimia, one has bulimia nervosa, and the other is non-compliant with their diabetes plan. So we're going to look at this case study and see if we can tell the differences between these 3 different diagnoses in our patients. So which is which? We'll start with Jan. Jan is a 16-year-old girl who feels like she weighs too much despite being a healthy weight. Jan sometimes feels like she can't stop eating and pigs out. Jan makes several trips to the bathroom throughout the day. Jan occasionally forgets to take her insulin and check her blood sugars. Our next patient is Billy. Billy is a 13-year-old boy who's a little overweight and feels like he doesn't fit in. Billy is always hungry and tends to eat a lot. Billy always has to go to the bathroom. Billy does not take his insulin very often and very rarely checks his blood sugars. Andrea is a 17-year-old girl who is underweight. Andrea never seems to fill up when she eats and eats more than she thinks is healthy. Andrea goes to the bathroom several times a day. Andrea hasn't checked her blood sugar in several days and takes very little insulin. So obviously we've looked at these 3 patients and they have some very similar symptoms. Looking at the comparisons, all 3 of our patients go to the bathroom several times a day, and this could mean several different things. In terms, if one of our patients has bulimia nervosa, they could be going to the bathroom to purge, but since all 3 patients are diabetics, They could be experiencing hyperglycemia and could just be going to the bathroom because they need to urinate frequently. We also see that they seem to eat quite a lot. Jan feels like she can't stop eating, Billy is always hungry, and Andrea never seems to fill up. Now, this could be an instance of binging, and followed by purging, where they eat too much and then purge to get rid of it, or omit insulin to take care of this, or it could just be due to their non-compliance and their body once again kind of wasting away and them just never always being hungry and never being able to fill up. And of course we also see that we have cases of not checking their blood sugars and not taking their insulin. This could be intentional to lose weight, this could be forgetfulness, this could just be non-compliance or indifference to whether they feel like they need to take their insulin or check their blood sugars. So let's look. Intent. Intent is everything when we're making a diagnosis. All three of these patients have very similar symptoms, and it's impossible to make a diagnosis without knowing their intent. After asking several questions, you find out that Jan dislikes her body and thinks that she'll be happier if she loses weight. Jan tells you that she is really busy and sometimes forgets to take her insulin. Billy tells you that the reason he feels like he doesn't fit in is because he is overweight. Billy thinks that people will like him more if he is skinnier. Billy avoids the question when you ask him why he doesn't take his insulin more often. Andrea is indifferent to the fact that she is underweight. Andrea tells you that she finds it really unfair that she has diabetes and doesn't want to deal with it anymore. Based on your follow-up questions, it seems likely that Jan has bulimia nervosa, Billy has diabulimia, and Andrea is non-compliant with her diabetic plan. So let's look at the symptoms specifically. The symptoms of bulimia nervosa are recurrent episodes of binge eating, recurrent episodes of purging. Self-evaluation is unduly influenced by body shape and weight. The symptoms of diabulimia are recurrent episodes of binge eating, intentional omission of insulin. Self-evaluation is unduly influenced by body shape and weight, frequent hyperglycemia, elevated hemoglobin A1C, and not testing blood sugars. The symptoms for diabetes noncompliance is insulin omission, frequent hyperglycemia, a need for independence from their diabetes, elevated hemoglobin A1C, and not testing blood sugars. So we can obviously that diabulimia shares characteristics with both bulimia nervosa and diabetes noncompliance. In terms of bulimia nervosa, there's both recurrent episodes of binge eating and self-evaluation is unduly influenced by body shape and weight. Between diabulimia and noncompliance, we see the intentional omission of insulin, the frequent hyperglycemia, elevated hemoglobin A1C, and not testing blood sugars. So once again, intent is the key to identifying and diagnosing these disorders. So here I have some helpful resources, some websites with a lot of good information about diabulimia that you can look up if you need more in-depth information. I have the American Diabetes Association, the National Eating Disorders Association, the Diabulimia Helpline, the Joslin Diabetes Center, the Castlewood Treatment Center, and the Barbara Davis Center for Diabetes. Now, are there any other questions that I can answer?
Yes, I have a question.
All right, what is it?
So as a mental health professional, I'm wondering what it would be important for me to focus on in terms of treatment when I'm seeing patients with diabulimia as opposed to with other eating disorders.
All right, that's a great question. So as with any eating disorder, it's very important to focus on the patient's self-image and their self-esteem and making them feel really good about their body and helping them understand that their weight, the little their weight, it does not mean the more beautiful they are or the better they look, that a healthy weight is a beautiful weight and that they really need to love their bodies. But in terms of diabulimia, specifically, it's very important to focus on the insulin omission and the not checking of blood sugars and really helping them understand how dangerous these can be and that it can lead to serious complications in their lives or even death. I mean, this is one of the eating disorders with the highest death rates. So it's really important to focus on those aspects to help them get better.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So here's the references I used for this information. I also have a pamphlet here, a nice brochure with just some quick bullet points on the symptoms and helps for diagnosing and recognizing diabulimia that you can all take with you and use hopefully in your own professional settings with your clients. So now that we've finished, let's move on to the second half of our survey that I gave you at the beginning. So once again, I have several statements here which I'd like you to answer with a 1 to 5 of strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. I learned a lot from this class. I can use what I learned in this class in my daily practice. I enjoyed this class. This class was confusing. This class was a waste of time. My questions were answered. I've also left space here for other comments that if there's anything I can help clarify for you or make better about this performance, just write them down so that I can helpfully improve this lesson for other professionals. Thank you.